we are ready. So who is
Okay.
presenting?
Okay. So happy to see everybody. Wow, this is my pleasure. I see now Carmen, I see Vivi, I see Esther, I see Gila. Wow, very nice. Okay. So, hello everybody. Today, Wednesday, May 10, 2023, 19 AR 5783. My name is Gladys Perez Mualem, coordinator of Women Learning Group since 2009, following our Ladies Bat Mitzvah celebration on July 5, 2009. It's the same group and getting more and more. Thank you all. I would like to welcome all of you for joining us on Zoom to enjoy the presentation of our history scholar, Sami Sourani.
Yay!
On behind the survival of the Babylonian Iraqi diaspora. We always learn new things from Sami. Thank you. Our next Wednesday speaker will be Doris Dalal, the auntie of Sandra Kuku. She will show us art of ikebana in Japanese flower arrangement. Every session we have is special by itself and completely different from the others. I hope you like what we are choosing. We like to see you, and we want you to enjoy our sessions. Please join us every Wednesday at the same time and same Zoom details, and enjoy the variety of our programs. I would like to invite Lizette Shashua to read for us a short biography of Sami Sourani. Lizette Shashua, bevakasha, bechavod.
Thank you, Gladys, for always making everybody feel so special.
Official invitation.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm very proud and honored to be presenting Sami. I'm gonna read what Sami wrote first and then read his biography. Sami writes, "It is thanks to my cousin, Gladys Mualem, who introduced me to the Women's Learning Group to share gladly with the group and our community the knowledge I accumulated. And thank you, Sami, for sharing with us always. You taught us a lot. Thank you." So now I'll say Sami's biography. He was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and went to Israel in 1950 with the Exodus, the Tasqit. He studied economics, BA at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and worked for almost 5 years for the Israeli government. He obtained his master's degree in economics from the University of Ottawa. Sami came to Canada in 1963, and after living almost a year in Montreal, he moved to Ottawa after getting a job with the federal government, Department of Defense Production. After serving for nearly 38 years, he retired as manager of the Economic and Statistical Analysis of that department. During his service, Sami participated in a large number of interdepartmental task forces, such as the crisis of Quebec referendum, the design of the GST, supporting, it's you who got us the GST, Sami?
We should
Yeah.
talk to him.
Now, I'm not sure I like it. Supporting small business, developing Canadian sources of supply to replace imports, and trade agreements. NAFTA, Canada-USA Defense Production Agreement, and the World Trade Organization. Wow, that's prolific. Developed a system for evaluating trade agreements, which was adopted by the United Nations as a guideline for evaluating trade agreements among countries. During his service, Albert, sorry, he's getting a doctor's call. During his service, Sami received 2 citations from the Canadian federal government, finally. And finally, lastly, the Governor General for Canada awarded him the Medal of Confederation in recognition of his contribution to NAFTA and other trade negotiations. He developed a keen interest in Jewish history and the survival of Judaism over the centuries, and he is sharing all his knowledge with us now. Thank you, Sami. God bless.
Thank you, Lizette. I would like to add that, do you hear me? Yeah, okay. I would like to add that
Because
Sami
they-
invited to Mexico at the government meeting for the free trade. He represented for the statistic of Canada, right, Sami?
Right.
Like that? You will explain it better than me.
Oh, Gladys, I can add something. He told me that when they were deciding what to put the rate of taxation for Canadians, they were going to go much higher. And it was thanks to him. He said, you're going to make everyone go bankrupt. So they brought it much, much lower than originally the group wanted to make it.
Okay, thank you, Sandra.
Can I ask something? I'm sorry. Was it clear when I talked because we got an interruption by the doctor's call?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, good.
Okay, I would like to invite now our friend Sami Sourani to give us our beautiful anticipated speech. So Sami Sourani, bevakasha, bechavod.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, Lizette. Thank you, Sandra. Thank everybody for sitting down now for almost an hour to listen to this enigma in history, the survival of the Babylonian diaspora. This kind of thing puzzled scholars. Why? Because for 2,600 years or 2,700 years, if we take into consideration the Jews of Kurdistan, all this period did not erase from our memory about Eretz Israel and that we are Jews. So it's a real something that we have to look at and find the reason of survival. Let us go back in history nearly 3,000 years and see what was the situation at that time and what led to these results. At that time, there were 4 big countries in the world, four big powers in the world. Egypt in northern Africa, with all its glory of culture and pyramids on the one hand. In Asia, you find in northern Iraq, Assyria, which was a very strong country at this time and known for its kind of architect and building. Then we have Persia, or Iran of today, which has a very good culture and very advanced kind of civilization compared to the other time, to that time. The Persian were all followers of the Zoroaster. Zoroaster is a kind of a religion which has some similarities to Judaism. Even they have a sort of a Bible, like our Bible, written on calf skin, not with ink, but with gold leaf. And it has the story of Noah as well. Okay, now how about Babylon? Babylon was a country very much advanced in science and astronomy. Babylon invented all kinds of models as to the movement of the sun, the movement of the moon, and how they divided the year into months and the months into weeks. At that time, the Jews lived in a country which was established by King David and King Solomon. It is extended up to the north of Israel. But what happened in that country, there was a sort of a hatred. Each hated the other. Each blamed the other for anything, and that hatred grew up in such a way that the country split into two. You have Judea on the one hand, where the capital of Jerusalem, and you have Samaria of Israel on the north. Being split like that, they become very weak. Becoming very weak, they were a sort of tempting object for big countries to come and swallow them. So we start with the northern part of the country. You have the King Ahab. King Ahab wanted to strengthen his power, so he married the daughter of the king of Phoenicia. The Phoenician used to worship a god called Baal, and they have a sort of a temple. This wife, Isabella, convinced Ahab to build a sort of a temple to compete with Jerusalem, so that people will come and visit his temple instead of Jerusalem. However, the situation was not stable on his side, and the prophets at that time warned him of his strange behavior. Now, saying this, what happened is in the north, the Assyrian started looking at his country. They wanted to capture it. Finally, they surrounded his country. They captured it and took the Jews as prisoners of war to Nineveh, and to a place that today we call it Kurdistan. They were put in a valley surrounded by all kinds of mountains and hills. So they became isolated there. Within time, some of them could succeed to go out and go to Central Asia, to Samarkand, Tashkent, Azerbaijan, and other countries, and maybe some of them even reached Russia. The rest stayed in Kurdistan, and it was in the year 721 BCE that those people lost their country. Now, what happened to Judea? Judea, they were afraid because they are also weak, because they become small. At that time, it is important to mention that the world was very much impressed by the temple of King Solomon. King Solomon built his temple to be open to any person who wants to come and see the glory of God. But the glory of the building is that the building represents a sort of a reflection of the wisdom of Solomon. The entrance, the windows are built in such a way that really speaks about his wisdom and his way of thinking. It's not time to, I have no time to talk to you about it, so we move further. Now, after what I have said, Babylon was interested in Judea. The king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, wanted to be friendly to the Jews. So he suggested to make a sort of an agreement with them. He invited a number of Jewish scholars and craftsmen to Babylon before he captured Jerusalem. They moved to Babylon and find their way there, advising the Babylonian on many things. Now, the king of Ashur, I forget to say that the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, signed an agreement with Judea that if Egypt started moving toward Babylon to capture it, Judea will be a sort of a hedge to stop them and to until Babylon will bring its army and let them fight together. And the king of Israel accepted that, and the agreement went on. On the other hand, we have the Assyrian. The Assyrian, after they succeeded in capturing northern, the northern part of the Jewish kingdom, they wanted to move and capture Judea. So Sennacherib, the king of Ashur or Assyria, came with 20,000 soldiers moving toward capturing Judea. He stayed for a day or two preparing himself. In the meantime, the king of Judea didn't know what to do. He consulted the prophet at that time, and the prophet told him, don't worry, before they wake up and tomorrow morning to attack you, they will all die. The 20,000 soldiers will die. The king couldn't believe that, but it really happened. What happened, there was a meteor moving in the world at that time. The meteor, and this story was even mentioned in the Bible, the meteor has a tail like a mouse. And whenever the tail moves on a certain place, all the biological objects die, whether it is a human being, whether it is an animal. So the tail of that mouse moved over the army of Sennacherib, the Ashur army, and they all died before they opened their eyes to see the second morning. Sennacherib found himself so much lonely, didn't know what to do. He ran away back to his country, to Nineveh, and from that time, he never lifted a sword against anybody, but he enjoyed hunting lions that were in a big quantity in northern Iraq at that time, until he finished the last lion. That was his life. In the meantime, Egypt moved toward Babylon. They wanted to capture Babylon. And when they came close to Israel, to Judea. And when they came close to Judea, the king of Judea at that time, Jehoiakim, didn't know what to do. He cannot stand before the army of Egypt. His army is too small. They will capture Judea in a few days. So what he did at the last minute, he decided to abolish the agreement with Egypt, with Babylon, and agreed that with a friendship with Egypt, and let Egypt go to Babylon to capture it. In the meantime, Nebuchadnezzar heard about that. He brought his army. They were very much smart in using all kinds of scientific methods to attack, and they attacked the Egyptian army. They defeated them, and then he moved toward Judea. He wanted to punish the king. At that time, the king was changed, and Jehoiakim gave the place to Sitkiyahu. Sitkiyahu became the king of Israel, of Judea at that time. Sitkiyahu didn't know what to do. His Jerusalem was surrounded by the Babylonian army. So they had a tunnel from his palace out of the city. When his family went out from that tunnel to run away, but the Babylonian army found them and captured them. They were arrested, and Jehoiakim was brought before the king Nebuchadnezzar. He was chained with a copper chain and was taken as a prisoner to Babylon. At the same time, all the Jews, the knowledgeable people, the craftsmen, the artisans of Judea were taken as prisoners of war down to Babylon. That was the year 586 BCE. So we have two dates. The date of the Assyrian captured northern Israel, it was 721 BCE, and took them to Kurdistan. And now the date of 586 BCE, Jerusalem was destroyed, the temple was destroyed, and the Jews were taken prisoners of war to Babylon. The distance between Jerusalem and Babylon is almost equivalent to the distance from Montreal to Toronto. But there was a desert in between, and the desert was not easy to walk and go to Babylon at the time. Some of them could not stand it. Of course, they died, but very few arrived to Babylon. In Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar created 10 districts, agricultural districts between the Tigris and the Euphrates, and he put them there as settlers to cultivate the land. In the meantime, the king of the Jews, there are two stories. One story, he took on his back a bag full of Jerusalem soil. He wanted that soil to be put on his grave when he died. When he arrived to Babylon, some say he was imprisoned, and some say he was appointed to be collector of taxes from his people to pay Nebuchadnezzar. And he get the title Rosh HaGalut, the head of the diaspora. Sorry. The diaspora started. The Jews found themselves in a strange land. It was a period of change, and the change requires adjustment. Change might have two ways. One is that the people find that their old system is not usable in the new life, and they find that the way of life in the new country does not match the way of life they had in the old country. They were very desperate in a way that was reflected in the song they had, "By the rivers of Babylon, we sat there and we mourned our memory when we remembered our country, Jerusalem." That was a very kind of expression of suffering, expression of people who suffered. They lost everything, they lost their future, they lost their belonging, they lost their families, and what is left is a sort of future unknown to them. It is very important for everyone to understand the situation. I think this situation of despair, of a person who lost everything, a person living in a dark, doesn't know what is going to happen, is very well reflected and described in the book of Sandra Kuku, when her father was taken to prison and he was put in that room with number of people, no windows to see the sky, no windows, and no people to hear, no people to talk to except strangers that are very strange to him. He cannot trust them. He doesn't know what they have in mind. If you want to understand what is the meaning of being desperate, very well depressed, have a look at the book and see how he used the Bible as a means to help him overcome the situation. Now we have the situation in Babylon. The people desperate. The people don't know what to have in the future. And in this situation, there's two prophets that took in their hand the responsibility to change, to make out of the tragedy a triumph, to replace the sadness with happiness, to change the mentality of the people and let them survive. Because if they continue desperate, they didn't know how to live, how to live, and eventually they will disappear within the other communities. But the way they took it really knows how to manage the situation. The two were Ezekiel, the prophet. His name was Ezekiel ben Buzi HaKohen. which is Ezekiel, the son of Buzi Cohen. And the other fellow was the prophet Ezra, who this scribe who documented the Bible. We start with Ezekiel. Ezekiel saw the situation. So he approached the situation from 2 points of view. From one point of view, to look at the family, the individual, their way of life. From the other point of view, he looked at the community and wanted to create a sort of a love among them, a sort of understanding. So he built up the first synagogue, and he convinced the King Jehoiakim, Rosh Galut, to give him half the soil of Jerusalem to put it in the foundation of the synagogue. And he called the synagogue Kehillah Kedusha, a holy place. And he told people, this is a replica of the temple of Solomon, and we have to come and visit this every, let us say, every Saturday or every happy occasion. So people get together. They were all unhappy, but they get together. Each spoke his story. Each one has a story to talk about his way of life there, how he to overcome it, what he is obtaining, what he is getting. And by the same token, it not only created a feeling of community and teared down the walls of despair among people, but it also let people appreciate the friendship of each other. For example, if one farmer has a good crop, the other farmer has a bad crop, the farmer with good crop will be ready and willing to give his excess of produce to his neighbor, so that his neighbor can live and survive. And in the future, if he has a problem, his neighbor could be better and help him too. So this way created a sort of a mutual benefit among people. Did he succeed? Did Ezekiel succeed? Yes. Why? Because there was no money. If the person with excess crop would sell his crop for money, then he would have done it instead of giving the crop to his neighbor. But there is no money, and he cannot store his crop. It will turn bad soon. So therefore, this kind of necessity creates a friendship among people. So people get together in the synagogue. They had a sort of a feeling as if they are still in Jerusalem. They exchange ideas, and not only they get in touch together, but also they find a way how to help each other. On the other side, Ezekiel look at the family, look at the individual. He introduced the ketubah. The ketubah was not known before. Now there is a ketubah. It is written, if you read it today, even today, it is the same, almost the same ketubah as it was written many thousands of years ago. But at that time, there was no paper and nothing to write down. So what they did, 10 men get together before the priest who read the ketubah, and they say Amen. And it is considered that the man and woman become a husband and wife to create a family for the future. Then Ezekiel get advantage of another occasion. Every occasion in the life of people becomes a sort of a ceremony to celebrate, a sort of a way of life to look at life from that point of view. When a child is born, when a child has a circumcision, when the child had a bar mitzvah, where he becomes more or less 14, 13 years old, he feels that he is wanted. He feels that he has a future, that his parents supported him. So this way, Ezekiel created a link between the past, between the present and the future. We are all linked together. We are all get together. On top of that, see what he did. He created occasions. At the end of the week, we have Shabbat. We worship God. We read the part of the Bible. At the end of the month, there is a new month. There is hope. Maybe the new month will bring us something good. At the end of the season, we have the festivity. We have the Exodus. We have Pesach. We have Sukkot. We have other occasions that we get together and celebrate a certain stage of life. This way, we are hooked together. We all carry this kind of a tradition together. We feel that we support each other. We are not alone in this world. Did he succeed? And for how long? I can give you two examples that show that Ezekiel succeeded somehow. One example was that few years later, a Jewish farmer was planting a tree, and a sort of a high-ranking soldier of the enemy moved by, and he said to the farmer, "Hey, you are too old. Do you think you are going to live to eat the fruit of the tree that you planted?" So the farmer turned his face and he said, "My ancestor planted this tree, I ate its fruit. I am planting this tree, a new tree, for my descendant to eat its fruit. We are together, we are one." This is one example. Another example, there was a story of a Jewish guy who had a very big palace built overlooking the Euphrates. That Jewish guy had a stable with good horses, and as well as barges that carried him, spending nice time in the Euphrates. One day he was visited by the governor, and the governor said to him, "I understand you have the good horses here, you have the barges here, you have wonderful palace, but in the middle you have this old rundown shack. How you explain to me you kept this shack here?" So the Jewish smiled a lot and turned to him and he said, "This shack, I grew up in this shack. This is all what my father could afford to have. But I kept this shack to remind me of my humble origin. I never forget that I was a simple person that made fortune." So these two examples were a good example of the education that the prophet Ezekiel planted in the heart of people. If we look at the way he worked, it is just like a sort of a guidelines we have today in the 20th century of some psychologists, some sociologists, as to how a community grow and how the person grow his mentality and his. One thing I want to mention here, the prayer that was introduced by himself, it was good sentences taken from the Bible. We read the prayer 3 times a day, on Saturday, at the end of the month. In other occasions, the same thing we read and read and read. We commit it to our mind. We even learn it by heart. What is the purpose behind that? The purpose was very simple. When you read good things and you learn it by heart, it goes down to your brain, to your subconscious. And when you behave, you find them guiding you. And instead of doing something wrong, you will find that all in a sudden, those wisdom come popping to your mind and say to you, "Look, don't do it." For example, we have what is called a certain sentence which says, don't let my, the person is talking to God and said, "Don't let me use my tongue to speak the evil, and don't let my lips say something bad." Now, when a person wants to do something bad, all in a sudden, this comes to his mind. It's captured our imagination. It captured our way of thinking all the time, present and in the future. And this was this was given from father to son, from son to his
founded
to his descendant. So on, we continue generation. We keep it one after the other. We keep the same tradition. On the other hand, Ezekiel has something very important. Although he spoke Aramaic like the rest, but when he talked to people, he used certain words and expression. That was an expression understood by the common person. I can give you 2 examples that he did. When they built the yeshiva, 3 yeshiva in Babylon, in Sura, in Pompadita, and Wenahardea, what did he say to people? He didn't say we are opening a yeshiva, but he said we are trying to feed the tree of knowledge. Why he used the term free? Because they are farmers. They understand what is a free, what is a tree. They understand that a tree, to give them fruit, you have to feed the tree. And therefore our knowledge has to grow like a fruit in a tree. That was very, very good. This approach is used by many politicians today when they talk to the public. Then another example that he used that was really amazing. When he saw people very desperate, he talked to them and he said, Hashem is going to send eagles to carry them on your top, on their wings to Eretz Israel. Why he said eagle? Why didn't say a machine or certain invention? He didn't use that. He used the word eagle because farmers understand that eagle is a strong bird, a bird that can carry heavy loads, and therefore he might carry them. But this prediction happened when the aeroplane took us from Babylon to Eretz Israel. The aeroplanes are really the eagles of her prophet Yehezkel. There is another point which is important to mention. When the yeshiva was established, the Jews did not, the students did not supposed to learn things by heart. They state a certain statement and they ask questions. And they ask questions. Why? Because knowledge is developed on curiosity. The more questions you ask, the more curious you ask, the more avenues you open. I can give you a very good example. You walk, for example, in downtown today, in Montreal or anywhere, and there is a lot of traffic, and you smell the congestion, and you smell the gas of the cars, and you say, "Oh, the air is polluted." If you stop at this point, fine, the air is polluted. But if you ask yourself why the air is polluted, you start to answer questions. Because there are no trees, because it is closed, because it is the machines with the cars when it works, they have to have exhaust and have the gas, the smoke outside. That smoke hurt us. But you will also think, how is the solution? So this simple example tells you that here we are. Science is based on curiosity. The more curious you are, the better you develop the science. And therefore, that's the future of humanity. If you ask the way of teaching today in the best universities, you find they use the system of answer and questions and answer. Now, in that yeshiva, the student used in a sort of semicircle, and the head of the yeshiva sat down in the middle. They call him Gaon, and the student graduate, they get the title Mar. Now, the students that are very brilliant, they sat close to the Gaon. And if a student was the best in his class at that in a graduation, he was given the opportunity or the chance to marry the daughter of the Gaon. This way, the wisdom continued. But the people at the yeshiva and the Gaon himself lived at all kinds of gifts get from other people. That was the situation. This was the building of the foundation of Judaism. That was the reason why we are together. We never forget the past. We never forget our origin. We always remember our origin in our prayer, in our behavior, in our everyday life. And so we started like that. And we continued. Did we continue like that all the time? All these 2,600 years? The answer is no. The environment changed, and so are people. And so our way of life has to adapt to the new change. Some changes are good, some changes are bad. excuse me. If we go down to we see that the 400 years lived under the regime of the Persian. Few years, less than 50 years, we lived under the Greek, under Alexander the Great, who captured the land of the Twin Rivers and called it Mesopotamia, and called the head of the Jews Exilarch, which is translation of the Rosh of the Galut. Then we have another time the Persian captured back the land from Alexander the Great, and they were very hard for the Jews. At that time, the Jews had an idea in mind. Secretly, they transferred the first synagogue in the world from Babylon to a new area between on the Tigris. They call it Baghdad or Baghdad. Baghdad is a word consists of two words. Ba means garden, and Dad means city. So Baghdad is the city of gardens. They secretly carried the synagogue from Babylon and established it in Baghdad, and they stayed in its situation even in our day today. That synagogue is built in the same place. It was modified number of years because of all kinds of problems, but it stayed the same. Unfortunately, when the Iraqi government wrote about the old building in Baghdad, they did not mention this synagogue at all, even though it was the oldest synagogue in the world, and it was the oldest kind of worship where Jews go there. Anyhow, now we move in another period. We move to a period where the Jews were under the hand of the Arabs. After the Arabs came from the Arab Peninsula and captured Baghdad, the Jews helped the Arabs hand in hand. They even sacrificed a large number of Jews helping the Arab to capture Baghdad. Why? Because the Arabs were not an organized army. The Persians were a very organized army. So the Jews helped the Arabs, and because of the quantity, they could overcome and capture Baghdad from the Persian. And Baghdad was now under the rule of the Arabs. Now, this is a very long story. At the very beginning, the Arabs compensated the Jews. The Jews had a chair in the Diwan, in the court of the governor of Iraq, the Arab governor of Iraq. That chair was called the chair of representative of our Grand Master King David, because King David was considered one of the big personalities even in the Quran. Now, and the representative of the Jews used to come to the Diwan, and when he came to the Diwan, they stand up and the music played, signaling the coming of this personality. Now, before we going any further, I would like to speak about the role played by Ezra the scribe. He was the second player to chart the history of the Babylonian Jews. Ezra found that when the Jews were in the Holy Land, the Kohanim learned the Bible by heart. They were protected because they were in the Holy Land, protected by all the Jews. But now in the diaspora, the Kohanim are not protected. Now they are subject to danger. What happened if something happened, a battle or something like that, and the Kohanim get killed? So probably the knowledge they have will be forgotten. So he decided to write down, to document the Bible, similar to the Persian documenting of their Bible on calf skin. The Persian had their Bible called Avesta. Avesta is representing the Ahura Mazda, the Zoroaster kind of religion. It was written on calf skin with gold leaf. There was 2 of them in Persia when Alexander the Great came, and there was 1 of them smuggled to Central Asia. But Alexander the Great decided to burn all the Bibles of the Persian when he captured it. Now Ezra has a chance to write down the Bible documented on calf skin. He did not write it with gold leaf. He wrote it with ink. The ink consists of the flowers of the cedar tree, made a suit out of them by burning them, mixing them with olive oil, and make a sort of an ink of them. When he came to write the Bible on parchment, he encountered difficulties. If he used the old Aramaic letters of the Bible, it is very, very hard. They cannot fit on the calf skin. So he decided to use the Assyrian letters. The Assyrian letters are the letters that we call them Hebrew, the printing letters that we write down our Sefer Torah, but they are not the real Jewish, the original Jewish letters. They were Assyrian. If you want to see how the old Jewish letters look like, here is a good example. Look at it, see how difficult it is to write it down on calf skin. It's almost impossible. The Assyrian were easier to write. So what he decided that a scribe has to write the Bible, document the Bible on calf skin using the ink I just described, and using a pencil made of certain kind of food from the date tree. And the scribe has to sit down beside a mikveh, and he has to hold the pencil perpendicularly like that. Why? Because if his hand comes on the calf skin and he's wet, then it will damage the page. So he has to hold it perpendicularly, and at the moment he finishes one sentence or few words of one, he has to go to the mikveh to wash. And this becomes tradition for the Jews that documenting the Bible has to be done by the scribe close to mikveh, so that he can wash himself every now and then. But the way he wrote the Bible is different from the way we have the Sefer Torah written now. The original writing, there was no space between words, no space between sentences, no space between paragraphs, no space between books. It started with Bereshit and ended up with the Book of the Kings. There is no space at all. And this is why, because they don't have much calf skin to write it, and they have to make it in this way so that it will be in a small few pages rather than several pages of a scroll. Doing that, what happened is that the original song, the original music of the Bible of the Hebrew is changed. Now with the new letter of foreign language, it is hard to sing the Bible in the same melody as it was before in the old days. Now, when at prayer, you find that we use a sort of a melody. When we recite the Bible, when we read the Bible, when the Hazan read the Bible, he read it with a melody. The question is why? Why it is done like that? Why it is written just like a regular page of a document? The reason is very simple. God gave man 5 senses. If he used these 5 senses in doing anything, he will never forget them. It will go down to his brain. And so the Bible was committed by heart by many people, because, and so the same for our prayer. They come to our mind because we use our 5 senses, not more than that. We don't have more than that. This is how we look at it. This is how we learn it. Then that tradition becomes part of us. Ezra took copies of the Bible and went out to many places where there are Jews and gave them a copy. He went to the Holy Land, he gave to the Jews of Shomron a copy. But in fact, he did not have a good relations with them because he saw them marrying non-Jewish wives. He didn't like that. But the way they had to do it because there were not many girls probably among them. So they developed a sort of a strange way of conversion. If a girl that the husband want to marry bought her from her parents that are non-Jews, had to live 40 days with them. If she lives 40 days with his family and respecting their tradition, she is automatically a Jew and they can marry according to Jewish law. Ezra did not like that and they did not like him. So he went out from there and he arrived to other places far until Yemen. In Yemen, he gave them a copy of the Bible that was documented, and he sent this to them. But also there was misunderstanding between him and the people of Yemen and the Yemenite Jews, and he came back a bit frustrated to the Holy Land, to Baghdad, where he died not far from Basra. The two prophets, Yehezkel and Ezra, are buried in Babylon, the same as with other 7 prophets that were in Babylon and buried in Babylon. Their tomb is buried in a sort of mausoleum where the Jews used to go and visit every year. Ezekiel was called the Kafil. Why Kafil? It is an Aramaic word which means guarantor. He guaranteed the return of the Jews to the Holy Land with the help and the support of God. His ways of behavior and the teaching of the Jews, he inserted the belief of God in the mind of the Jews. They always believed there was always a big supreme power that is going to save them one day. On the other hand, Ezra the scribe documented things that he was afraid that will be forgotten one day. I want to tell you that both the prophets are mentioned in the Quran many years after that, after they died. Ezekiel was mentioned as the guarantor, but Ezra was described in this word, I say it in Arabic, and then I translate it. And they say, وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودِ إِنَّ الْعُزَيْرَ أَبَانَ اللَّهِ. And the Jews said that the Uzair, which is Ezra, he gave us the real meaning of God. So that was why real meaning of God, because he documented the Bible, and now we can read the Bible, ask a question, and enjoy the past, the old stories. Now, these are the things that we carry with us. Those are the secret of our survival. A community, a feeling of a friendship, a sort of a things that we carried in the past, and with the leadership of 2 leaders that understood the past and understood the people, were sympathetic to the people, speak to the people in the language they understand. And this is how Judaism implanted in our heart. And we always remember, this is it. This is our future. We are Jews. We never change that. Now, it is now 11 o'clock. I think I have a few minutes just to summarize, and then we ask your questions. I promised Gladys to make it just 1 hour, not more details, but 1 hour. So we have in front of us, the main thing is the leadership. The leader has to be very important, a person that understands the situation of the environment and his situation, the new situation. And it was in the days of Yehezkel, that people were told by their leaders, we have to respect the land and the tradition of the host country. We are not going to be against them. We have to respect it. And this is why we can live and let live. That was the main idea of the two prophets. I want to say to you this story. The Iranian believe that Yehezkel is buried in Isfahan near the grave of Esther and Ahasuerus. The Iraqi Jews believe that Ezekiel is buried in Babylon, near Babel. There was a sort of a discussion among them, and finally, during the Ottoman Empire, the Persians sent a delegation to Istanbul and spoke to the Ottoman Sultan, and they said to him, we have to open the grave of Ezekiel to find out if he's really Ezekiel is buried in Babylon. And somehow the Sultan agreed. He decided to open the grave of Ezekiel under the supervision of a judge. So a judge, Muslim judge, was appointed from Babylon, and some rabbis accompanied them, and they went to open the grave of Ezekiel. After a few feet of digging, they found a coffin made of metal. On the grave, it is carved the name Ezekiel ben Buzi HaKohen. This is the name of the prophet Ezekiel. So they translated that to the judge, and the judge said, stop, don't open the coffin, close the grave again, and I swear and I declare that here is the grave of Ezekiel. Ezekiel is buried in Babylon. And that was the word from that time. That happened, I think, sometime around the 18th century. I don't remember the exact date, but here we are. We left Babylon, we left the tradition in Babylon. We left 7 prophets, we left a large number of philosophers that wrote all kinds of things that were still not known to people, unfortunately. Philosophy that are really rare, that are not even touched by translator to translate them. And here we are. We left Babylon. We left at the time in 1950-51, signaling the end of 2,600 years in Babylon, 2,700 years in Kurdistan. And here we are, challenging the past, trying to look at the past and saying, here we are one. We are one nation, we are one people. We'll never forget our origin. We are Babylonian Jews. Thank you. If there is any questions, I'm ready.
Thank you, Sami. Thank you. That was a great speech. So much knowledge, so much information that we have to keep with you. Is everybody hearing me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. It's so much. I mean, I think some people it was hard to follow, but everything is recorded. And today already in the afternoon, we have Viola Tulczynski that she's recording. I mean, she will put everything in YouTube and you can look at it. It is the same link as every time I am sending it to you. It is recorded by Xenia today, and it will be on YouTube in an hour or two, maybe. She's doing it so fast. And beside that, Sandra Kuku will give us also some resume, which will be very helpful to everybody. Sami, I saw Marvin, he wrote, Sami is a jewel. And I think we all approve that. Thank you for so much information in 1 hour. We learned so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, Gladys, I have a suggestion about the prophet saying to the people, you must respect the laws of the land in which you live. It was Jeremiah, probably Ezekiel took it from Jeremiah. He was, Rabbi Sachs says he was a genius because his suggestion to the Jewish people made them survive throughout the exile until today. What did he say? He said, seek the peace and prosperity of the land in which you, of the city in which you live. For in their peace and prosperity, you will find yours. And that's what we've done all along. Everywhere we go, we bless the government and we contribute. And so that's where probably Ezekiel took it from, right, Sami?
Thank you, Sandra. That's a beautiful. Andre,
Can I ask a question? Hi, Sami. Thank
I
you
agree
very
with
much.
you. It was Jeremiah copied from one generation to the other. 400 years, it was repeated by another scholar saying to the Jewish people, we have to respect the laws of the land. So it even what they introduced something very important that all of us know. In the wedding ceremony, we know that we say, Kol Sason v'Kol Simcha, Kol Hatan v'Kol Kala, because we want to say, this is the stage of your life, be happy. The bride and the groom, you start a new life, be happy. So he wanted to replace the feeling of sadness with a feeling of hope and expectation.
thank you, Sami. Thank you. Andre, you want
So
to say?
thank you, Sami. It was wonderful. You are an encyclopedia, better than the Britannica. I wanted to ask you about, now I know that it's Ezekiel who wrote, who started the Ketubah. That's what you said? The
Yes.
Ketubah. Now in the
Yes.
Ketubah, there's
But
also...
sorry, but it was started by Shlom Tzion, the Jewish queen, earlier. It's just that he started to write it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the Ketubah, there's also a place that says if the man leaves his wife, he has to pay her an amount of money. Is this the case? Is that so?
Well, you see the Ketubah get adjusted and modified over the ages. So which period of time this was added, I don't know, maybe they have to do it because they cannot leave the woman just to herself without any support. Because the Jewish laws always modified and improved over time.
I see. But it was accepted that there should be a divorce between the parties, no? The divorce was accepted from a long time ago.
Yeah, if I may, I have a translation of my son's Ketubah, and it was this question that we wanted to answer when we were doing a program on Shlom Tzion, the Jewish queen. She installed two things, the Ketubah and education, universal education, because she knew that the temple would be destroyed and we would be in exile for a long time. And the only way to perpetuate Jewish tradition would be the stability of the family and education for everyone, not only the rich men and the old men, but children and everyone. So yes, in the translation of my son's Ketubah, it says the husband is responsible, even if there's a divorce, to provide for the wife, because there will be children also to consider, and it's just for the protection of actually the family unit.
There was an amount of money, let's say $15,000. They said zuzim, no? In Lebanon, they used to write 555.
Just like pieces of money.
The money they used before. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I think it's up to the man to specify how much he is going to give his wife. Because
Of course.
his value, he is giving her value when he specifies how much he's going to give her in case something happens to him or in case he leaves her.
Yeah.
But I think the ketubah was there to protect the woman and the family, the kids that were going to come.
In other words, it has to keep up the family as a unit, no matter what, because the family was the basis of every community, every society. The marriage of man and a woman is the basic in all civilization. Without a family, you cannot have a continuous civilized world.
Yes, thank you.
It's a beautiful point, Sami. Unfortunately, the situation now is alarming. There are less families get together. And I think the ketubah should be reversed now, that the woman has to pay and not the man. Because many of the divorces are coming now from the woman, unfortunately.
Well, I agree with you, Gladys, but you see time change, and the Jews change with time. The Jews never stay the same. The basic principle of the Jews is the Bible. The Bible never changes, we change. So we are influenced by the environment, and we have to adapt to between the past and the present.
Yeah, nice answer, Sami.
Do you have 5 minutes for a little anecdote?
Yes, we do.
Yes, please. Yes, yeah.
Okay. You know that I lived most of my life in Ottawa. I worked for the federal government, and I came in touch with all kinds of people, different cultures, different faiths, and I enjoyed their company. And I try to understand from them, though I don't ask a question as to their way of life and the way they think. One day, Lydia and I were invited to a wedding of a Hindu kind of wedding. That was something, quite interesting, because something we're not familiar with. So we went, we sat down, and all in a sudden, the bride and the groom came. The moment before they step on the podium, they took off their shoes, barefoot, without even socks. They went to the podium, they put their feet on a piece of stone on the podium. And the priest came, he said all kinds of things in Hindu. Then he said, I will translate it to English. And the words that he said it came into my mind, I can never forget it. He said, you man and you woman decided to build up a new life to be husband and wife, and you declare this before God and your community. The only thing that binds you is something called love, but love is very fragile. You cannot strengthen it with iron bars, nor with gold and diamond. It is still fragile, but because it is fragile, you take care of it. The more you take care of it, the stronger it is. So the question is, that's a fragile thing that becomes strong if we take care of it. But I asked myself, what is love? I was looking in the notes that I had, and I found a poem written by a Jewish poet back in the year about 750, something like that, in Baghdad. He said in Arabic, and I will translate it to English. He said, وَعَيْنُ الرِّضَى عَنْ كُلِّ عَيْبٍ كَلِيلَةٌ وَعَيْنُ الْبِغْضِ تُبْدِي الْمَسَاوِيَ. The eye of love is too blind to see the mistakes of the one you love, but the eyes of hatred see mistakes only. Now, what does that mean? It means love is compromise. We have to compromise with our family, to compromise with our society. We have to compromise with everyone, and this is how love is done. But if we look only at the bad things, then we build up a hatred, and that hatred end up in explosion, and everything is destroyed. So I loved what he said, and I wanted to say that to you because it is implied in our religion, though we didn't say it frankly and exactly, but it's implied in Judaism as well.
Thank you.
Sami, now I know why Lydia has no mistakes ever.
I can't hear. It is not clear.
I said,
We
now I
couldn't
know.
hear you.
I said, now I know Lydia has no mistakes ever. I know why now.
Okay, that was beautiful, Sami.
Is there time for one more question?
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you, Sami. I wasn't present for your whole lecture, but I did get a nice portion of it. And I did want to thank you not only for sharing your knowledge, but for the underlying contribution to like meaning and spirituality. You're not just sharing facts about how things were. You're giving nuggets of wisdom that are bigger than that. And I think that's something to be valued and to be shared. So thank you so much for your words. I did have a follow-up question about something you said, which sparked my curiosity in particular, which was the relationship between how things were written and how things were, the melodies and the senses. I was wondering if you could say a few more words about that relationship and how that was cultivated, how like that, was it a bi-directional relationship or was it really how it was written strongly contributed to how it was sung or the melody?
Well, when you sing a prayer, you hear your voice, you hear the music for your prayers, you understand the words, you sense them, you are using your five senses. Therefore, if you use your five senses in doing something, you will never forget them. You know, this is why. And I want to say that history or archaeology proved that the Iraqi Jews introduced the music to the Middle East, to the Arab worlds. Because, and I heard that from a Muslim historian, Iraqi Muslim historian. He said the Iraqi Jews introduced the music to the Middle East. Before, there was no archaeology that shows there is any instrument of music before that. It is the Jews that introduced it, and the rest of the Middle East adopted that.
Thank you, Sami.
Thank you so much for elaborating.
And you know, that makes sense because biblical wording is all in metaphor and poetry besides the prose. When Moses was telling his last messages to the people, he did it through a song, because in that way he knew it would stay in the hearts and minds.
Who told you that he did it in a song?
It's written in the Bible. Read it in Deuteronomy. He did it in a song, and we've been told that in many presentations. Read. I'll try to send it to you, Andre. It's a beautiful, beautiful thought.
Thank you, Sandra. I would like to welcome among all of you Bonnie Kodos. She is from Adat Israel and the president of the sisterhood. I am very happy that you are joining us today, and last week she joined us also. And Adat also, they have beautiful programs, and I usually join them to enjoy their programs. It's from Adat, Israel. And I noticed today we have some young generation of the Iraqis. And this is very flattering. They would like to know about the history of the Babylon. I see here the name of Jason Fatal, and I see Marvin. I assume Marvin is Marvin Shaheen. And there might be many more that I
Cheryl
was there.
Cheryl, she just spoke.
Cheryl Gabay.
Gabay.
Oh, you are welcome. And
Cheryl Gabay.
Doctor.
wow, that's wonderful. And I hope you continue to join us because we have every week something else. We don't have Sami every week, but
Unfortunately.
we have different things every week. We learn something and we enjoy something. I am very happy that our program is good for all the generations.
And Tanya Corin is with us today too.
Pardon?
Tanya.
Next week we are having flowers arranged. It's completely different. And that would be the auntie of Sandra Kuku. She invited her. It will be very nice, completely different. And we enjoy everything.
Yes, and thank you, Gladys. And Bonnie Khodos just texted us that, and I will send you the poster once they do it at Adat. They invited me to speak about my dad's book on May 28th. It's a Sunday at 7:30 p.m. And Bonnie Khodos said they already sold 4 books. I gave her a bunch and they all want to buy it and prepare reading it before. So please join us, May 28th. I'll send you the poster. And Sami mentioned Daddy's book in his talk is that I also remember Naim Katan during a brunch we had. He said, you know, the Jews, when they left Babylon, they took the only thing they had with them was the Bible. And they interpreted it and made interpretations on the interpretations and again throughout the centuries, which is exactly what my father did. He went back to the Bible and he interpreted it, and that is how he kept his soul alive. And we're lucky to have it now because this is really for the young people. I have copies.
We're really lucky to have you come and speak to us, Sandra, and please invite everyone in your community and from the Spanish and Portuguese. We would love to have Sandra publicize as much as possible. So
thank you.
Really
thank
our great
so
honor.
Much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
And thank you for inviting me. It was a marvelous lecture today.
Thank you so much in your interest. I remember with Norma Joseph talking about food and meat and all of that. It just brought our 2 communities closer. So God bless.
Yes, I just, Naim Katan's book just arrived at my house this morning. So I'm excited to read that one as well.
By the way, Bonnie, do you have the recording of Norma Joseph? Norma Joseph gave a great speech by Zoom at
it's recorded on the Adath channel of YouTube. I can send it to you.
If you can send me, then I think all our group would love to.
Oh, I'm sure.
Watch. It is all about the Iraqi Jews of Montreal.
Yes.
She was interviewing for many years everybody. Like me, I was interviewed through her many times. And once, even by herself, she came to my house and interviewed me. I have so many through her.
Yeah.
And I would like to send the link to everybody.
Oh, I forgot to say also that Carol Basri will join us on May 28th. She will be asking questions and we will interact on the book.
Yes,
I
Sandra,
see a new face here, Stella.
Sandra will talk through Adat Israel, the synagogue, on Zoom. So we will publish it and everybody will be able to join. And next week we are having a great session also in a different way completely. It will be about the flowers. And the week after we will have Dr. Bilbul, is dermatologist, our friend in our synagogue. He will speak about the hair. And the following week will be also about the complete, will be Alan Morad, about the will. He will speak about the will.
The importance of making a will, yeah.
Yeah, yes. Then we will have dance with Maurice Perez. Then we will have the cantor, our cantor Daniel Ben Lolo, a musical session. So not everyone is so historical and so informative like today, but they are all beautiful by themselves, each session. And I would like everybody to join so that we can see all of you and we enjoy this
Can I say something?
together. Yes, sure. Who is
Sorry,
that?
sorry to interrupt. It's Lisette.
Oh.
I think Stodos was asking about the Babylonian Talmud, and I was thinking, would Sami consider giving another lecture about the Babylonian Talmud? Would that be an idea? Gladys, what do you think?
Why don't you ask Sami?
I am.
Well,
Where is Sami?
only if you want. Only if you want
They
to
have
find
to
the
ask
time
him to
for that.
come.
That's fine. As a matter of fact, you know that the Talmud took 500 years to write. 500
Yes,
years.
it's amazing.
It's not 1 year,
Amazing.
500 years. Yeah. And
So what
generally
do you think,
speaking,
Gladys?
you
Can
know what is the Talmud?
I don't know if it is the domain of Sami, the Talmud, is it?
everything
Well,
is the
the
domain of
Talmud
Sami.
it was a gem. It was a gem of literature and legal things and all kinds of advice to people that was collected, analyzed, and written, which for a period of 500 years. And we found there are certain cases that just explain without conclusion. Why? Because the Talmud thinks that a conclusion limits the thinking of person. You have to leave it open.
Open.
Each generation has an idea of how to think about things and how to use the same idea in different environments. So
And
this is the
Sami-
beauty of the Talmud.
And yeah, that yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, this
Yeah,
is
the ethics of the
It
fathers.
is not-
The ethics of the fathers, does
Pardon?
that come from the ethics of the fathers? Does that come from the Talmud? Pirkei Avot,
Yes.
which we are reading
Oh,
now
yes.
in between
Yes.
Passover and
Yes,
Shavuot.
part of it, yes. You see, what happened is that every generation, they took portion and speak it in a certain way or explain it in a certain way. The Talmud, as you probably know, it was taught in Europe in a legal school for quite a while until they decided, no, it has to be forbidden.
Wow.
It shows you how to think. That's the main thing. As Einstein said, to study is not to repeat what you studied, but to study is to give you a tool to know how to think. So the Talmud gives you all the required tools, how to think, how to ask the questions, and where to ask the question.
I like what Sami just said, that the Talmud is to be adapted for every generation. This is what last week Sami Salam did the same thing. And from all the speech and of last week, I like that part, that the Talmud, it's written in the Talmud that it should not be applied exactly as it is. It should be adapted for every generation. That's
exactly
beautiful. Thank you,
when Sami, but Gladys, I think the thing that Sami does the best is, like, unlike the rabbis that just tell us everything and explain it the way they learned, Sami has studied, and the way he brings it on to us is from the knowledge that he understands. So it actually comes from the heart in a way that we, who are normal people, not really rabbis, can understand it, because he translates it into the meaning that we understand and into the words that we can understand, so that it stays in our minds and we don't forget it. Because sometimes when I go to the synagogue and I listen to what the rabbis are saying, yes, I understand it, but somehow or other I don't retain everything. It's a little difficult. But when Sami speaks to us, somehow or other he's telling us a story. And like a child, how the child retains the stories that you tell him or her, he does that to me somehow, and I'm sure he does it to a lot of you, that you can retain what he's saying and you don't forget it, and that way you can repeat it to other people, like your children, for example. So thank you, Sami.
Exactly. And, you know, I heard once there was a saying that you go to university to learn how to learn, not to indoctrinate or learn by heart, but you go to learn how to learn for the rest of your life. And this is what Sami said about the Talmud. I found it fascinating.
Because Sami has a mentality, so he speaks to us directly and we understand directly. Other, if you want to say rabbis or whatever speakers, they speak in general. So it is completely different. You have Sami is one of us. So he knows what we need to know and what we need to learn, and he knows what we know. And
so in short, are we going to have Sami give us a talk? No.
Of course. Sami, I'll answer for you. It's yes.
Thank you.
Well, I, with all what I did so far, I just touched the surface.
From you today, Evelina. Where is Evelyn?
She went.
Now she's here.
She left.
She's muted. Oh. Evelyn, you're muted. Open your volume. Open your, Evelyn, we don't hear you.
I don't see Evelyn. Where is Evelina?
Oh, I can see her. I can see her.
Trying to talk to us.
I can't find her to spotlight her.
And there's also Evelyn. There's also Evelyn, Lizette's sister. I just saw her. Lizette's sister.
Evelina.
Evelyn is yahoo.25.
Okay.
You found her?
Yes.
But she's muted. We don't hear her.
I asked her to unmute. Hold on. She should not be muted anymore.
I see you all.
Oh, now we hear you. We couldn't hear you before.
Hi, my
Hello.
auntie.
Hello, Sami. You are full of knowledge. Thank you very much.
Encyclopedia Souranica. We have to call it Souranica.
That's with Joanne. Hello.
You know, I'm supposed to write the notes. God help me. I wrote everything down. I asked Sami, do you have anything written before so I can use it? He says, no, everything is spoken. So I'm gonna say everything is from the heart. That's why it stays
And
in
the
our heart.
brain. And
Yeah.
the brain. Yeah, it's the brain that keeps working, thank God, eh? He's full of stories. When Lydia first married Sami many years ago.
How old were you, Carmen?
Yes, me?
It was a
When
little
Lydia
boy.
got married, I was 13. And she came home, before she married him, she came home and she told us, this man is very, very, very smart, very bright and full of knowledge. I don't know if I can keep up with him. So something actually directed her to keep going with him, and look at them today. Over 50 years of marriage together.
Beautiful,
And
beautiful.
full of knowledge.
Very nice. And the main thing, we brought them from Ottawa. We were missing pictures.
The hair.
Linda Fatal, you want to say anything? Can you unmute Linda, please, Senya?
Linda, you're muted.
And find her. Hold on.
She's right here. She's Linda Fatal.
Okay, found her. It's funny because what's right here to you guys, I have a completely different.
Linda Fatal. You want to say anything?
I asked Linda to unmute, but she has to accept.
Oh, maybe I think she's driving. It looks like she might be in the car.
Hi.
Drop.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Linda.
Say hello to us.
She just muted herself.
She left.
Okay, she's having a problem. She does, you know, we know what Linda feels, so it's good.
Great.
So where is Linda?
Thank you, Sami. Thank you, Gladys. It was wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. With
Thank
Sami,
you,
anytime.
Sami. I was waiting for you to say something because you joined even before 10 o'clock.
Yeah. I didn't want to miss out. Thank you, really. Like Carmen said, you make everything simple and understandable for our little minds. So thank you for that.
Our mind is not little. If we appreciate all these speakers.
That's true. We're
So,
getting a lot. Thank you. And thank you, Gladys, for providing this service for us. Thank you.
we have been all these years together and enjoying all these wonderful speakers. And I want to say something about Sami. Our grandmothers are cousins.
Yes,
Our
right.
Wow.
Our maternal grandmothers are first cousins.
Right.
Cousins, but we are like first cousins because our families were always together.
We lived in the same place, in the same area in Baghdad.
Yes.
Gladys, I want to ask you a question. I don't know Sami when he was a young boy. You do. So how was he then? Was he just as smart when he was young as he is today, and just as wonderful and good-hearted?
She's not going to tell you.
Why?
Well, maybe she has some secrets.
Oh, Gladys. Oh, no.
I have something to say that's not.
Wait,
You're muted, Gladys.
How was he when he was younger, Gladys?
What?
How was Sami when he was a young boy? You're the only one who knows him from our group when he was a young boy.
I know Sami through all the ages. Because our families were together, so we know each other as little.
Yes, but what I'm asking you is, how was he? Was he just as smart and wonderful then as he is now?
Always smart and wonderful, always.
Well, You know, I think Carmen, his biggest quality is what we saw today. We saw a young woman, I forgot her first name, but she's Gabai. And
Her name is Cheryl.
yeah, for the young people nowadays to be touched to the core by a simple lesson in history by our history scholar, that is his legacy. Because from the heart, he touched our youth, who are now, as we see, are joining us. It's not only women's learning group, it's the young people too joining us. And so Sami, God bless you. And Lydia for supporting you. Don't forget.
Good. It's wonderful.
Man, there is a woman. And this
Can
is
I-
what keep him and make him smarter and smarter and giving like Linda.
Because our whole purpose is the young people. Oh, here's a beautiful young person, Tanya Corinne.
Hello.
Wow.
Hello.
Hi, my daughter.
Hi. I
Where
have a
is-
question for Sami.
Hello.
Hi, Gladys. Hi, nice
Hello.
to see you.
Hello, I saw you.
I listened to the whole class. I was out and I just came in, and I have a question for Sami. As the Babylonian Jews, we've come a very long way. So we've come from Israel and then 586 BCE to Babylon, and then you went to Israel, and then you went to Ottawa, and then you went now to Montreal. So we've journeyed a lot. You as an example, where would you say our homeland is? Is it Israel? Is it Babylon? Is it Montreal? Where is really home?
Well, I tell you, when I was in Israel, I lived in Jerusalem most of the time. When you walk down the street in Jerusalem in the evening, you have a sort of a special feeling, very, very strange. I don't know why. I felt that many times. I walked down the street, I felt, well, I am part of that. Really, something strange, I don't know why.
It's a connection that you feel when you're there.
Well, it was very strong connection, very strong connection. You feel you are part of your environment.
Thank you. You spoke so beautifully the whole time. I felt like it was very special to hear it, and I've heard you many times speak, but today was very special. I found it to be very, it registered inside. Everything you said registered inside, and I'll remember it.
Good, I'm glad. You see, we have to create a sort of interest about our history in the young generation. When I came across a large number of documents written by rabbis in Baghdad that nobody even touched them. Nobody even knows who they are. No researcher ever spent 1 second to see who wrote it, why, and what are the reasons it was written. It's amazing what you can find. Yeah, like I give you a simple example. I found a description of someone, I'll describe it, and then you tell me where it was written. A person said, that scholar said, you are a human being. If you feel you are depressed, you are sick, you don't know what to do, my advice to you, go sit down in a park, in a sort of a jungle. Look at nature, look at the high trees, look at the small ant. They are both created by God, and God takes care of them. So why God doesn't take care of you? Look at yourself as part of this environment. Imagine, do you think when was that written? Give me just a guess.
I don't know. 1,000 years
was
ago.
written in the year 333 BCE by an Iraqi Babylonian Jew.
Wow. And it still makes a lot of sense.
Of course.
Ben Ish Chai. I think it was Ben Ish Chai. No,
there are people who wrote things that the community did not understand it, and they really was dismissed from the community. Like there was one who said to the community, look, disease is not caused by evil eye as you believe. It is caused by certain creature that the eye cannot see. It penetrates to the body through water, food, and air. So they said, he's crazy. People said he's crazy. How it happened? It is only the evil eye that caused the disease. So the mentality of people changes from one generation to the other. And this is why the Talmud is great. Everything needs its own generation, its own environment to understand.
You know, Tanya, I think you made Sami very happy today because all the time he talks about all the information he has. He would be so happy. He wants them to go to the new generation. Otherwise, they will be lost. And now you showed him how your interest, and there were another few people here from the young generation. And I was very happy to see
So
that.
Gladys, let us ask our young people to give ideas. What subjects do they want? Tanya, all the others, you suggest topics for Women's Learning Group. What do you want Sami and other speakers to talk about? And I'm sure Gladys will help them deliver.
Yeah,
Let
well,
the
when
young people
they,
ask.
they could think about it and let Gladys know. That's
Okay.
all.
Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful. God
Thank you,
bless you,
Sami.
Thank
You
you.
really
You
made
make
it
it
sound
good.
good.
Good night.
Make it good.